Hey everyone, welcome back. Get ready for another deep dive into the world of finance,
Yeah, today we're taking a look at a recent episode of Ticks and Picks.
which is always a good one, right?
Yeah, definitely a favorite. It's got some really useful insights, particularly on global trends.
Ooh, I'm interested in that.
We're also going to look at some really interesting developments happening right now in Egypt's corporate world.
Perfect. Love that.
And as always, we'll connect all of that to what it actually means for your portfolio.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's jump right in. The first thing that kind of jumped out to me from Ticks and Picks was this whole thing about the Federal Reserve.
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of pumping the brakes on rate cuts, even though job openings are going up.
Right. It seems a little counterintuitive.
It does. So why is that?
Well, it's all about inflation, really. So, more job openings usually mean more people are spending money, which drives those prices up even more.
Makes sense.
And the Fed is in this tricky position where they want to encourage economic growth, but they also have to keep inflation under control.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it seems like right now they're more worried about that inflation getting out of hand.
So what does that kind of global caution mean for everyday investors like us?
Honestly, diversification is going to be your best friend.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, by spreading your investments out across a bunch of different asset classes, you can really lessen the impact of any big swings in the market.
Right. Yeah. Not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And when inflation is a worry, certain assets like gold tend to hold their value much better.
So maybe stash a little gold under the mattress just in case.
Oh, my goodness.
Of course. But speaking of things holding value, let's talk about this big project from Orascom Construction. It's that huge wind power project in Ras Gharib.
Oh, yeah, that's an exciting one.
I was reading about that.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely massive. It's set to be the biggest wind farm in the entire region. Can you believe that?
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, by next year, it's going to be generating 650 megawatts of clean energy.
I know. That's a ton. And, okay, so it's clearly a big engineering accomplishment, but is there more to it? Like, why should investors care?
Well, think about it. As the world shifts towards green energy, companies like Orascom that are right at the forefront of that change are set to see some major growth.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and this one project alone, it could send their stock value through the roof. It's definitely one to keep an eye on.
So green energy, good for the planet, potentially good for our wallets too.
Potentially, yeah.
Love that. Okay, before we move on to the Egyptian stock market, there are a couple of other things from Ticks and Picks that caught my attention. Something about the National Bank of Egypt.
Oh, right. They've been offering those high-yield certificates, and they've attracted a huge amount of deposits because of that.
Now, what are those exactly?
Well, basically, they're certificates that offer, pretty attractive interest rates compared to regular savings accounts.
Okay, got it.
And so a lot of investors are flocking to them because they're seen as like a relatively safe way to make a decent return.
So are those something that, like, the average person should consider?
I'd say it really depends on your own financial goals and how much risk you're comfortable with. High-yield certificates are a good option if you want a guaranteed return and, don't want to risk too much. But it's always a good idea to look into all your options, of course.
Right, yeah. Always a good idea to do your research.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I think there was also something about CRA, right? It's something to do with the real estate.
Yes. Their big acquisition offer in real estate is a sign that there's a lot of confidence in Egypt's economic growth right now.
Oh,
Yeah, investors are putting their money where their mouth is. And I mean, that could create some opportunities, especially if you're interested in going beyond the usual stocks and bonds.
interesting. Okay, so lots going on outside of the stock market. Yeah. But let's talk about the EGX now. The Ticks and Picks episode mentioned the EGX 30 and EGX 70. Can you give us like a quick rundown of what those are all about?
Sure. So these are indices that track how well the Egyptian stock market is doing.
Okay.
The EGX 30, it focuses on the top 30 companies listed on the exchange, while the EGX 70 includes a wider range, 70 companies.
Got it.
And essentially, they give you a pretty good snapshot of the overall market performance.
So it sounds like Ticks and Picks was hinting that there might be a downturn coming.
Yeah, they were. Both the EGX 30 and EGX 70 have shown signs of possibly heading down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the EGX 30 could potentially drop below 29,000 points, and the EGX 70 might fall below 8,000. These are those key support levels to watch. If they break through those points, we could be in for a bigger decline.
So what does that mean for someone who's invested in the Egyptian stock market?
Well, this might be a good time to just step back and think about how much risk you can handle. Are you okay with riding out those ups and downs that the market sometimes has? Or Would you maybe want to adjust your portfolio a bit?
Okay.
Maybe move some of your investments into things that are less likely to change drastically in value, or even just spread your investments out even more.
Right. Makes sense.
Diversify.
That seems to be the theme of the day. Great advice. Okay, last thing on the list, gold. I know Ticks and Picks talked about this interesting difference between global and local gold prices.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So globally, gold prices are doing pretty well.
Okay.
But here in Egypt, the local prices haven't really kept up.
Interesting. So is that a good thing? Like,
Mhm.
does it mean it's a prime time to buy gold in Egypt?
It's possible that price difference could be a really good opportunity, especially if you're looking to buy low and maybe sell high later on. But you always got to be careful with precious metals. Do your homework. Make sure you really understand how the market works and what the risks are.
Right, don't just jump in blindly.
Exactly.
Awesome. Wow, we really covered a lot in this deep dive, from global trends and those big moves by Orascom to what's happening in the Egyptian stock market and even gold. Phew.
It's a lot to digest, for sure.
It is, but, like you always say, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your finances.
Couldn't agree more. The more you know, the better equipped you are to make smart decisions.
Absolutely. So think long-term, figure out what your financial goals are, and hey, if you need help navigating all of this, maybe chat with a financial advisor. They can help you make sense of all this exciting and sometimes unpredictable world of finance. Thanks for tuning in.
And thanks for listening.